Hello and welcome back to the Punchers Chance podcast, and welcome to our 2025 boxing review. We're going to be having a look back at everything that's happened this year, the highlights, the best fighters, the best moments, all that good stuff. And we've brought to you it live from my living room. It's a bit of a makeshift setup if you're watching the video version, but the dedication to bring you guys one of our last shows of the year, and we'll be bringing you a 2026 preview later on in the week, so stick around for all of that. Before we get into the awards, so to speak, so what we're going to do, we're going to nominate somebody each, and then we're going to decide democratically, hopefully no fighting.
Well, we're in a living room now, so there is space for us to move about.
There is a little bit of room.
Not a studio anymore.
Yeah, we're going to decide who wins each one. But before that, 2025 as a year of boxing, what we rated it out of 10.
I was just thinking about this. Do you think... I think 2024 was better.
I agree.
In terms of 12 months. I think it's just because it felt like we had about 50 different undisputed fights last year. So we've had some really good fights. When you look back at the year as a whole, we've had some really good fights this year. And yeah,
I'd say possibly it might be a slightly better year for your dedicated boxing fans, but it's definitely not as good for the casuals. Like, we haven't got those big mega fights that we got in 2024.
They saved them all for the last couple of weeks in the year, haven't they? With obviously Jake Paul, Anthony Joshua, the biggest fight of the year. No, I think it's weird because I was looking back over 2025 last night, and some of the fights that came up was like, oh, they fought each other. And it was a bit like that Bivol Beterbiev card, that incredible card of, you had, what was it? Callum Smith, Joshua Buatsi. The first fight on the show, you had Ajit Kabayel and Zili Zhang as well, I think, on that card.
Yeah, Shakur Padley obviously would have been Shakur.
You talk about cards of the year, that's it. But that was in February.
Yeah.
And that feels like ages ago. So, yeah, it's hard to think because I think when you look at some of the fights we've had compared to 2024, we've had some decent ones. But like Ben said, I think 2024 probably is slightly better.
Yeah, well, we've kind of teased a few possibilities there with the fight of the year. So we're going to open with that one as our first award of the day, the fight of the year category. I'm going to go first on this one.
I feel like we should be, suited and booted for this. The Ring Magazine Awards are in New York. Yeah.
Maybe next year. My first one, I think, might be the most recent of all of ours. I think Sam Noakes, Abdullah Mason. I think lightweight world title, two guys without a world title, both shows that they're world level fighters. Absolute back and forth scrap, had it all. They rocked each other. They both took bombs. They're both massive hitters. I actually think it was great fun to watch. It wasn't I think it was probably better than I thought it was going to be. I thought either man would win comfortably, and in the end, they kind of just took a round each. And then, I think Mason rightfully won it by a round, but I think it was a cracking scrap.
And the weird thing about that fight as well is it was their first sort of real step up, wasn't it? And it didn't feel like that. Both fighters were fighting as if they were at that world level for some time. So I think when you look back at that fight, I had it noted down in my notebook as a potential fight of the year. But then I clocked that Sam Noakes is one of Sam's favourites. So I thought I'd give him that. But yeah, I think it was a decent matchup, fair play.
Yeah,
international fight of the year, maybe.
A really back and forth fight. It is one of those 12-round fights that keep you like hooked for the whole 12 rounds. I think sometimes when you get fights like that, sometimes they can be a good watch, but it was a bit more one-sided, maybe where who is going to win. But I think for the whole 12 rounds, we were going back and forth thinking, Sam Noakes could nick this if he has a strong finish, but it was a really impressive performance from Abdullah Mason, a really good learning fight, I think, as well. I don't think he'll be in as many tough fights for the rest of his career as that one.
No, probably not. What have you gone for, Harry?
I've gone a little bit different. I've gone over to the States. I've gone on the undercard of Canelo Alvarez, Terence Crawford, and I've gone for Christine and Billy Lester Martinez.
It's a cracker.
Back and forth slugfest, war. It had everything on it. When you look at Netflix and what they've done with boxing, and the main events have been really good, but they haven't got the depth on the undercards. That fight there is probably the best fight on the undercards that we've seen on Netflix. And I feel like I had Nakatani Hernandez from last weekend down, but then I thought because of the decision, I thought that doesn't deserve to be fight of the year. This one was a draw, a split decision draw, and it deserved to be a draw. And it was just incredible. I've rewatched round 10. If you haven't, go back and rewatch the last 90 seconds of that round. Unbelievable action.
I feel like a draw feels right for a fight of the year as well, because a one-sided fight is never a good fight. So if your fight of the year isn't a 115, 113 or a draw, I think you're doing it wrong.
Yeah, I think it's always a fight you want to see again, and especially if it does end up in a draw. But hopefully we get to watch our But what was on the undercard of?
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Another fight of the year, potentially.
Yeah. But maybe.
Before, yeah, okay.
I wouldn't be against it, but I wouldn't nominate it.
No.
What about you, bud?
I've got the actual winner of Fight of the Year. I was lucky enough to actually be there as well. But if you were going to make a movie on a fight, the whole story of this fight would make an absolute perfect movie. And that is Chris Eubank, Conor Benn, the first fight. The second fight didn't quite live up to the hype, but the first fight is one of the best fights and best nights I've ever been involved in. It was so good to be there. And I think it deserves to win Fight of the Year.
I can't even argue with it either. Like, I'd love to.
Do you know when I said about the Sam Noakes Abdullah Mason, I thought, right, I'll give that to Sam. And then I looked at that fight and I was like, Ben would definitely put that down. Especially, like you said, the story, the night when Chris Eubank Sr. got out of that Rolls Royce with his son is probably, when you talk about moments of the year in boxing, that's probably right up there. But the fight as well delivered. And Conor Benn that night showed a level that I thought he couldn't show. And I think me and you both went Chris Eubank Jr. on points. I think I went Chris Eubank Jr. by a wide point decision. So for Conor Benn, even though he didn't get the result that night, to get in that fight and make it competitive, and it was so good. And you talk about classics. That was a British classic right there.
It was more than just the fight itself as well. There was a whole build up around it, the egg swap. Like, in terms of when you look back in 20 or 30 years' time, that's the type of fight week or fight build up they make, like a documentary about, and they look back and then just the whole night. Like, I was very lucky to be there on the night, and just, yeah, it's something I'll always remember.
Yeah, it was everything about it was perfect. You obviously, we said at the time with the fight, it had that kind of WWE feeling about it. And you said, obviously, you can make a movie out of it. But I actually think if you made a movie out of it, people would be like, nah, it's a bit far-fetched. I'm not buying it. Yeah, class, unbelievable. Yeah, I painfully will have to say,
I agree with it.
Concede, he's right. Yeah, fight of the year, Chris Eubank Jr. versus Conor Benn, Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, the first fight, obviously. Is that one of the biggest drop-offs from first fight to second fight in terms of entertainment value, do you think?
I don't know. The second fight was entertaining, but like in a different way, I think. It was a lot more one-sided, obviously.
I think this is actually intriguing. The second fight went as expected. We all said beforehand that Chris Eubank Jr. is struggling at this weight of 160, and it just proved to be the difference in that rematch where Chris Eubank Jr. is no longer a 160 fighter, and he's probably going to call it a day.
And the talk of the first fight was, is the weight going to be the difference? And actually the weight was the difference, but just in the second fight and to Chris's detriment as opposed to his benefit. But congrats both, for the win. Puncher's Chance Fight of the Year.
I'm sure they are delighted.
Buzzing, yeah. It really made us all they did it for, I heard. That's what they had in the back of their minds. Knockout of the year. So we've gone from toe-to-toe scraps, points decision victories, close, narrow fights, to the complete other side of the spectrum. Ben, we'll reverse the order this time. What is your knockout of the year 2025?
I'm not going to lie, lads. I think I've got the winner again.
Do you think?
Because I've gone with Fabio Wardley's knockout against Justice Hooley.
Hi. You talked about Rocky films just a moment ago. That was literally a Rocky film. You can have going the distance on that fight throughout the fight, and you can just go, Fabio Wardley is out of this. And what is it? A Puncher's Chance, isn't it? That he can come from nowhere. And the shot that it was a shot from the gods, literally. He caught Justice Hooley off guard. And Portman Road, wow, what a scene it was that night. The atmosphere was dead up until that point, and it was a fabulous knockout.
Yeah, if it had a roof, it would have been blown off after that knockout. And I think what makes that knockout so great, and maybe you could use it as a counterpoint to why maybe it wouldn't be knockout of the year in terms of as a single shot is the context of the fight it came in, the fact he was down so far, the narrative around Fabio Wardley, his hometown fight in his stadium, all of this, it was unbelievable. It felt perfect. It felt written. But actually, I didn't think it was ever going to come when I was watching the fight. So it's a good shout. I think there's room for improvement possibly, but it is a great shout.
I don't think you beat that. You said earlier about like movie script moments where if you watched it and you thought, oh, that's a bit far-fetched. In terms of that whole story of, he was basically 11 rounds down. He had 3 minutes to knock him out and to just set up the absolute perfect punch at your home stadium to erupt it, and that essentially led to him later becoming a world champion. It's true, like,
Especially with that pressure.
that punch is a life-changing punch.
Yeah, you're not wrong. What have you gone for?
Well, talk about context. I feel like this fighter deserves the knockout of the year because he is probably one of British boxing's best stories, and he's the gift that keeps on giving. It's Dave Allen. I'm going with Dave Allen's knockout in the rematch against Johnny Fisher in the Copper Bosch back in a horrible night in the summer for myself, who's a big Johnny Fisher fan.
I was going to say, you wouldn't have had that on your 2025 bingo card.
No, exactly. But I look at it and I feel like when you watch that fight back, it was a bit like justice was served for Dave Allen in the sense of, I think we can all sit here and say back in, when was it, December last year, he comfortably beat Johnny Fisher over in Riyadh, and Fisher obviously had the decision that night. But to come back and, you know, he's had so many setbacks as well. You look at his career over the time, and Dave Allen's a sort of fighter that hasn't taken boxing that seriously, and he's sort of had a second winded in his professional career, and that knockout against Johnny Fisher to get it right at the end of the round with 1 second left. As soon as that bell went, bang, that hook came across and sent Johnny Fisher to sleep straight away. But I just you look at the context of it and it was brilliant.
I agree it was a cracker. I think it was a cracker knockout, but
There's better.
I think I also think the context as well of the fact that he probably should have won the first fight anyway. He then told Johnny, don't take the rematch. You know,
And that was
I think for me, watching that knockout, I was a bit sad. I was a bit deflated by a knockout. You want a knockout that makes you want to, you know, throw yourself off that balcony in excitement. Then that's the kind of knockout. I think that one, it was just, I wanted to, you know, go and sit in a dark room and have a cup of tea or something. It wasn't.
Sam sounding like what I did after the fight there.
It is one of those fights though that you are gutted to see either man lose because they're both really good characters of the sport, and it's just like, you don't often come across fighters, I think, when you cover boxing and you think, I hope this guy never loses, because you just always want to see them win. And when they come up against each other, you've got a sort of dread feeling of, I'm going to have to watch one of these guys losing. To lose in that fashion as well was even more brutal, I think.
Yeah, I agree. My knockout of the year was one I actually didn't see live, and I don't think any of us saw it live, but it came up on my Twitter feed, or X, whatever you want to call it, the next morning, and I just couldn't believe what I'd seen. It was spectacular. It was Brian Norman Jr. versus Jin Sasaki, round 5. It'd been coming the whole fight. He tagged in with 2, I think, in the first round, sort of knocked him off balance, but he didn't really catch him clean. And then just that lead hook. I think I'm a sucker because it's a lead hook, which I love. Sasaki's chin is wide open and he just lands it on the money. And he is, I think what makes this knockout so satisfying, and I mean this in the most respectful way to Sasaki, because as far as I'm aware, he's okay. He's due to fight again. He was gone long before he even hit the ground. And when he hit the ground, there was absolutely no sign of him getting up. You know, with the Justice Uni one, the context much, much better. But it looked like he might have got up and then just get stopped 10 seconds later. But then, you know, it didn't, you know, the fight was called off. Whereas this one, it was rendered over the moment leather touched skin.
It just shows how brutal boxing is. That knockout there where that hook came across, he was out of it. Like you said, as soon as he connected with it, bang, lights are out.
Yeah, and I think it was so visceral. When I watched it on Twitter, literally I watched it like 3 or 4 times. And the first time I was like, oh my God. Second time I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And it just, you go through those, like, all the stages of grief in one. So for me, that was the knockout that made me feel the most.
That must be such a horrible feeling as well. Like,
Obviously, because it's easy to remember it. I think that's the beauty of it.
yeah, but that must be like,
That must be the worst.
that must be a terrible feeling. Like when you're back in the changing room eventually and you're like, I can't even remember fighting. Like that must be,
Yeah.
it's probably like a scary feeling.
Well, Benny talks about after Usyk fight, didn't he? Even after a while back in the change room, he was like, "Oh, when am I going out?"
Yeah,
You've been out and you've been knocked out. And you have to relive it, which I think.
I think the same thing happened to, I can remember watching an interview with Michael Bisping as well, where he got knocked out in the UFC and they also took him back, put him in his changing room, left him for 5 minutes, and then someone walked in and he was warming up and he was like, "Let me know when I'm going out." And they were like, "You've already fought, you've already been knocked out." Like that's surreal to me, how you can just be knocked out so badly that you've forgotten that you've already gone up and fought is crazy.
Yeah.
Who are we going with? Because we've all held it free.
I have to be honest, deciding votes like you, Harry's going to be, because I think me and Ben are really agreeing with that it's not you. His would be my second place behind mine.
I talk about I didn't watch that one live. Like you said, I watched back the fight the following morning. He was so dominant and the knockout was coming. You could see it.
Yeah.
I remember watching Wardley Huney, and there's not many times I jump out of my seat when a knockout happens because you kind of expect it, don't you, sometimes in the heavyweight division. But when that shot came, I think it was a state of shock. And then you're jumping around like, oh my God, he's done it. Like a white-collar boxer has done the unthinkable. I'm going to go Fabio Wardley, knockout of the year.
It's fair enough. I'm happy to concede it. I like Fabio as well. I think he's a great guy, so I'm happy for him to have it. I don't know, Brian.
I think his name's going to come up a little bit more.
Lawler Jr. lost to Devin Haley in his next fight as well, so,
Yeah.
didn't have the longevity on it. Next up from you, Harry, you can kick us off. Performance of the year.
Lads, you're in real trouble here, I think.
So,
I had two. So I'll tell you the first one I had. I had Conor Benn in the rematch against Chris Eubank Jr. just because of all the antics in the first fight and build up to the second fight. But I've gone with Dmitry Bivol in the rematch against Artur Beterbiev, where he lost the first fight, controversial, I know, but to come back in February last year on probably the best card of the year, and to win and become, at that time, only the second undisputed champion at that time, or the third?
I think it would have been
After the Usyk Fury fight, didn't it?
So I think it would have been the third.
second. Yeah, it was before Crawford.
So I think that, and the way he did it was just remarkable. So yeah, Bivol's performance.
It wasn't what I thought of, and now you've said it, I do think it's a great shout. Because as well, like I said, we thought he won that first one, but he really put it out of doubt in that second fight. And he did so with a style that I just didn't see happening. He thought, in the first fight, you thought he did brilliantly to box him, but Beterbiev was inevitable in causing some issues. And instead of going, I need to box better, he went, no, I need to plant my feet a bit more. I need to land more shots every time I'm in the range and then get out of range rather than try and land little and often. I did expect that game plan from him. He executed it perfectly. Stand, bonus point, he did it in a cracking, shiny silver kit, which I just think looked great.
Especially against, as well, a pound-for-pound star that is in his prime of his career. Obviously a little bit, Beterbiev's a little bit aging, but it was still a cracking performance.
Yeah, I think that's what makes it really impressive as well, is the fact that when you come up against someone like Beterbiev, you've got to be at your absolute best to get anything out of that fight. And I don't think we thought he could have improved, or I thought he won the first fight, but I don't think any of us thought he could have improved on that. So I was thinking, going into that rematch, if he's fought that good and still hasn't come away with a decision, how would you improve on that? But yeah, that rematch performance, really, really good, and could be one that we see the trilogy of in 2026.
Hopefully, yeah, it could be. It feels a bit weird now because I'm going for this, but I'm actually in my head almost conceded that I think yours is better. But I do think mine is a great shout, and it was one I think went under the radar a little bit because of what we expect from him. Alexander Usyk versus Daniel Dubois.
Really?
I think
this
talk of that fight was, this is the man who beat Usyk and can beat him again. This is the only man that can hurt Usyk. Dubois' power is a problem. Can Usyk do it against him? And not only did he beat Daniel Dubois, he eviscerated him. It was, he not only said, I can outbox you, like we all knew he could. He went, not only am I going to outbox you, I'm going to knock you out in your home turf. I'm going to do it in such good fashion. The way he set up that shot, made him miss, and as soon as he thought, yeah, this is it. I think it was, I expected Usyk to win that fight, but never in the way he did it. And I think for me, that's why, against another world champion, I think if it was anyone other than Usyk, guaranteed fight performance of the year. It's only because it's Usyk and it's what we expect from him.
I think that's the first time I've watched Usyk as a heavyweight and really thought, yeah, you are a big, strong heavyweight, like big hitter, because not many people have hurt and dropped Daniel Dubois in that way. But when you think of Usyk coming up against all these big heavyweights, it's always sort of like, well, it's a cruiserweight really, who's just so good that he can beat these heavyweights up. But that, just in terms of how dominant he was and just the power he seemed to show in that fight, like Dubois just didn't have any answers for, couldn't deal with the technical boxing ability, but also was being outdone in the power perspective as well, which is probably Dubois' biggest strength. Like, you look at Dubois as the biggest hitter in the heavyweight division, and he didn't have no answers at all.
He outpunched a puncher.
I can understand why you're saying it's performance of the year, because if you read all the sort of the build up to that fight, everyone was sort of giving Dubois a chance. I think everyone was comparing that Dubois that we saw in Wembley against AJ, or in Poland against Usyk. Can't even talk about that low blow because I came up how many times in that fight week. So I can understand it, but I think there's one better. And if Benn's going the way I think he's going, I don't think we can argue with him. I'm 3-0 up.
The reality of the matter is, we're gifting it to him. That was the one I had on.
Yes.
But you know,
It had to be different.
officially speaking, it's not.
No, so for my performance of the year, it is Crawford against Canelo, just in terms of, well, was it seen as a 50-50 fight, or I would have said definitely more people would have had Canelo as the favourite. Obviously, Crawford jumping up 2 weight classes, and there was a lot of talk beforehand, I think, of, yeah, Crawford's good, but has he ever really done it against someone, a pound-for-pound fighter who, you know, it is going to really test him? And I have never seen Canelo struggle so much. Like, he just did not have any answer, and realistically, he had most of the advantages in terms of being the bigger fighter, like it should have been. I think some people thought it would be one-sided to Canelo. I think all three of us, not that we thought it was going to be one-sided, but we all
Canelo, yeah.
predicted with Canelo. But I can remember staying up to... I went Crawford.
I went Crawford, yeah, fair enough.
I thought we all knew I'd love it, but I remember staying up to watch that, and I was just absolutely mesmerised with how impressive Crawford was. And I think, like, we've always said he's a really good fighter, but that fight in particular, I think, really made me realise we were watching someone really special. And now it's almost like it's too late now, because he's hung up the gloves, and he, like, probably didn't appreciate him as much as you should have, because that fight in particular really showed his class.
Yeah, I think what really does my head in with that as well is the amount of revisionism on particularly online afterwards of, Canelo's washed. But beforehand, it was Crawford can't do it against Canelo, 2 weight, do this. And then when he does beat him, it's similar to the Spence fight, where it was like, everyone was like, oh my God, this is such a good fight, such a hard fight. And then he beats him so comfortably, and they go, Spence, what's not? Like, you can't rewrite the narrative after the fact. Beforehand, everyone was saying Canelo is too big, too good, too clever. And afterwards, the answer was, no, Crawford's too good and too clever. and Canelo wasn't big enough.
And I look back to that performance as well. Through 10 rounds, it was a masterclass. And then you could have made the argument that all Crawford needed to do was just comfortably win the last 2 rounds. But instead, he just ignored what Bomac was saying to him in the corner and just went out there to, and was beating him brutally as well in a way. So,
Yeah, I think everyone.
I don't want to agree with Benn for a third time. I'm trying to make.
I think everyone thought that the best game plan, obviously, against a fighter who's 2 weight classes bigger than you is hit and move as much as you can. But even when he was planting his feet and trading, he was coming off the better of the two and talking about like iconic moments of 2025. I think one came in that fight where he caught him with that really good counter punch, and you just seen the look on Canelo's face of what am I up against tonight? He just didn't seem to have any answer for it. So yeah, I think I'm 3-0 up, love.
Can I do an honourable mention here?
Yeah, go on.
So a lot of fans, non-boxing fans, could potentially give a certain Jake Paul the performance of the year with his 5 rounds. He stuck in there, bit down on his gum shield and survived 5 rounds of Anthony Joshua. That could be a performance of the year if you were delusional. But I am not. And I believe that Terence Crawford deserves performance of the year.
I have to agree. He's 3-0. I'm all right with it though, because I think we're going to win. What I think I'm like Dave Allen in that first fight. In the first fight, I'm going to pick up some rounds in the stretch. Fighter of the year. It's the big one. It's the one people care for.
Fighter of the year.
When they talk about Ring Magazine pound for pound #1, WBC champion, it's the Puncher's Chance Fighter of the Year that these guys lace up their gloves for. And the man I'm going for, I think, we could end this segment here, and you couldn't argue with me. It's Inoue. The 4 wins in 1 year, 4 defenses of the title. The first man to defend the Ring Magazine title since Larry Holmes in the, 70s, 80s?
1982.
You remember that?
Yeah, that's why he remembers it. It's so many just phenomenal fights. He did all of them so comfortably. Yi Jun Kim, it was a later-ish step-in opponent, but he knocked him out in emphatic fashion. And then you had Cardenas in Vegas, dropped him. Everyone was like, oh my God, what's going to happen?
Talk about fights of the years.
It's a great fight. Did the business. Akhmadaliev is the man that's going to cause Inoue problems. Absolutely not. And then Alan Bacasa Romero. People are talking like this was a disappointing performance from Inoue, like it was like he's suddenly pillow-fisted, all this rubbish I've seen. I think that's the best performance in the lot. He whitewashed the second best in the division, a 31-0 professional, a WBC silver. It was unbelievable performance. He is the best fighter on the planet by a country mile.
That's it is really.
You can't go from, right, so we're going to go on this super first there, but
There's not so many elite level fighters this year that have, the consistency of performances and just the amount of times they've been up there. I was looking at, I think most fighters have fought the maximum of 2 times this year. Usyk was one of the ones I had just because of the Dubois performance, but similar to performance of the year, I went for Terence Crawford as the fighter of the year. I know he only fought once against Canelo, but with it being the best performance out of anyone in the 12 months, the fact that he's retired, undefeated, which not many fighters do, undisputed at multiple weight classes, like to jump 2 weight classes and dominate someone who most people run from and have run from for the last near enough decade, and hang your gloves up at the end of 2025, go down as a Hall of Fame fighter. I think that's there's no better way to go up to the sport, really. So it's going to be difficult for me to argue against Inoue, but Crawford also my pick.
Bonus mark for Terence Crawford. He mugged off the commissions. He knew he was on his way out, and he went, I'm not giving you a penny for my last 2 fights. You'll suspend me, and then I'll hang up any.
Yeah.
So good. I'm not saying I support that as an idea, but I rate it.
So I'm going to go from the super bantamweight, super middleweight, all the way up to the heavyweight division. We've already talked about him. Fabio Valdi, I feel like, has had probably the best year for British boxing sometime with the performance against Justice Hooney, but then he was an underdog against Joseph Parker in that unbelievable pay-per-view card to main event that. And again, it was a sort of fight where Parker was having some success, so then all of a sudden Fabio Wardley just put his foot down on the pedal and just went, I'm going to take you out here. And there's some arguments that stoppage was a little bit premature. I feel like if it went on a little bit longer, Fabio Wardley would have knocked him out clean. But I just think the story as well of Fabio Wardley talks about that he hates people referring to it, but he's from white collar to where he was against Parker in the WBO to now being the world heavyweight champion, the only British heavyweight champion at the moment. I think he joined like a slim list of fighters. Was it Nick Ball, Lewis Crocker?
Those are the three.
And those are if they're the three, then fair play to him. And I think you just looking at, you talk about pound for pound stars. I'm just talking about a normal bloke that's just picked up boxing late in his life and has just gone and could have a huge 2026 after a dominant 2025.
It's underdog story of the year. And if such an award,
Can I get a point on it? Imagine though, at the very start of 2025, someone turned to us and said, by the end of the year, the only British heavyweight champion of the world is going to be Fabio Wardley.
yeah,
Talk about worst takes. I mean, I would have.
you would,
You'd have laughed at it. You would have been laughed out of the studio.
but it happened. So fair play to him. Story. It's not better than Naoya Inoue, is it?
I just think you've got to give Fabio Wardley is a very close second for me just because of that story. But in terms of the consistency of Inoue and the fact that I think it's just even the fact that he's coming up against elite world level fighters and people are probably not giving him the credit because he makes it look so easy. Like I've seen arguments this week of, he's really good, but who's he coming up against?
Everyone.
But like, he is that good that he makes them look average.
Was it 27 consecutive world title fights or something?
It's crazy.
It is crazy. It's unforeseen level of longevity. He's so good. Like, we can't say it enough. He's so good, and he's a fighter of the year. Do you know what the problem with Inoue is? I actually don't have the words to describe how good he is because I'm not good enough to comprehend it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I can only say he's so good because I can't fathom.
Especially that's performance against Picasso.
Yeah.
It just showed how much of a gap there is in that division from Inoue. Is a huge gap, then is Nakatani, and then a huge gap again probably, and then everyone else.
You could argue maybe even Inoue, huge gap, Picasso, Nakatani, etc. Because he's looked unbelievable against Inoue without picking up a round, in my opinion. Like, he looked really good, but he did pick up a round. So I'll take that one. It's 301. Which is the record you kind of start going, I think I'll become a journeyman at this point. But
I think I'm already a journeyman.
I'm willing to power on, though unfortunately, going into this next one, I think I don't know where it might go. But we'll start with you, Harry. Who is your female fighter of the year?
So I'm going to go with the youngest current undisputed champion. She's had a dominant year, 2 stoppages in her 2 fights that she's had. No one comes close to her in her division, and that is Gabriela Fundora.
I think she was very high on my list as well.
I think arguably the best female boxer behind Katie Taylor in the world at the moment. She had a good 2025.
Not a great 2020.
And I think that's the only reason.
I think that goes back, though, to your point of Inoue. A little bit with the sort of her competition at her division isn't what everyone expects it to be for that sort of stardom.
It's difficult to not say she deserves it because she's probably the best in the world. But I've actually gone for another British world champion, but obviously a female British world champion in Ellie Scotney. Ellie Scotney went into the year with the belt round her waist. She then picked up the IBF, I believe, against Miyamoto. And then in her next fight the WBC against Yamalef Nakado. She was meant to fight for the WBA on the undercard of Jake Paul Joshua. And I think that would have cemented her as all 5 belts, including the Ring Magazine belt. That would be undoubtable female fighter of the year. She didn't win that because she didn't have the fight because of an injury in training. But I still think when you look at it, what she's done, 2 really good defenses of her belts, picked up another one in the time. I think she would be my female fighter of the year.
2 strong choices, lads, but I think I've won again. I've got Elif Nur Turhan. I said the other week that she is my favourite female fighter. She's fought 3 times this year, all against undefeated opponents, and she has starched every single one of them with very impressive knockout wins in every one of the fights. Started off in March against Shawna Brown, which probably could have been on the list of one of the knockouts of the year in itself.
And it's probably a fight that no one watched as well, because it was on the before the bell.
I was actually watching it, but
That was the third her metric side in as well.
that was the first time I watched her, and I just thought, just with that single punch and the punch power she shows, I was just like, how have I not seen you fight before? But obviously ended the year out it was in Monaco, wasn't it? On the undercard day.
Yes, yeah.
Another very impressive one-sided stoppage win, and I think 2026 is going to be the year where she really breaks through and starts making a massive name for herself, especially if she carries on knocking out people the way she does, because you don't often get that in female boxing with the 2-minute rounds and just knockouts in general. I just don't think come as often, obviously, as in the men's fights, but she is such a good fighter to watch, and the exact type of fighter I want to see. Someone who's getting in there and swinging for the fences every time and looking for that stoppage. So she's my female fight of the year.
I think also you could say an argument for performance of the year against Beatrice Ferreira. And like, I expected us to do well. God, did I not expect it to do that well? It was unbelievable against a genuine champion in Beatrice Ferreira. So again, I'm struggling to argue against it too much, because I do just think she's been unbelievable.
There's a good list this year. I think it was harder to choose a female fighter of the year this year than the male fighter of the year, because
There was no standout.
Michaela Mayer, I think, was up there as well. Alicia Baumgartner. There's plenty of
Katie Taylor, Amanda Serrano, even just once this year, you would have to say is up there.
Long Pride.
Nobody's gone for Clarissa Shields, which is a surprise to nobody.
I don't know. I left that for Sam.
Surprise to absolutely no one. Do you
I don't know if you watched the Night of the Samurai back, but the build up, they were talking about that, and they were saying that she's one of the pound for pound greats.
Wow. Never mind.
let's fight Lauren Price. Some of them will.
No, I just think it's going to take a while. I think because partially because they're all at MVP now, they all kind of fought a similar amount of times this year. And they all kind of had 2, maybe 3 at a push. They all won. They all had some good title defenses. I think Shaneka Johnson's another shout that we didn't give a shout out to. She's had a really good year, particularly when you look at how she entered the year. Obviously controversial against Nina Hughes. She lost to Teddy Scotney not that long before that. And then she's looked unstoppable since. So shout out Shaneka Johnson. She's my nomination. She's my honourable mention. That's the one. But I'm giving it to Ben.
You're giving it to Ben? We're going to
I'm giving it to
I'm going to retire in a minute.
Unfortunately, because then also again, he's the one I appointed on the score.
So now I really has a point now. We're going to draw here.
Next up is our prospect of the year, young fighter. No Abdullah Masons, no Moses Atomas in here. This is fighters less than 5-0, genuine prospects on this channel. None of this rubbish where they go, the next future world champion prospect, and it's someone who's got like a mandatory in a week. Like, doesn't count. Ben.
Oh God. I'm kicking off. American fight. I've just managed to sneak him in because he's 4-0. He's had, this is all 4 professional fights he's had this year, so he's been active as well. Someone we've interviewed on the channel, Sam, done the interview somewhere. He just
That's desk.
former Olympic fighter has looked very impressive since he's turned over as a professional, and really looking forward to how his 2026 goes, because I think he's one of those prospects that are going to be moving through the ranks quite quickly with how impressive he's looked. Yeah, like I said, 4-0 has looked impressive every time. Hopefully we get him over in the UK at some point so we get to see him live, and hopefully get to catch up with him and speak to him live as well. But yeah, Omari Jones is my prospect of the year for 2025.
It's a great shout. He's the full package. He's got the support. He's got the knockouts. He's got the performances. He's got the amateur pedigree. And I actually think, he's a very good amateur. But I think he's taken to the pro ranks better. When you see amateurs turn over and sometimes you look at them and go, yeah, they've got a bit of learning to do. And sometimes it looks like they've been a pro their whole career. Omari Jones, in that first performance, it was like, yes, this is what we expected.
Yeah, when you watch him, it is crazy to think his first professional fight come in March of this year.
Yeah. He feels in every way he conducts himself, he feels like a seasoned vet and a seasoned pro. But
and also each of those 4 fights he's had this year have all come against fighters with winning records.
Yeah.
How often do you see that for
That's a good point.
a prospect turning over? Yeah, in their first year as a professional.
he's got a degree though. He's younger than me. He's definitely younger than you. But it's a great shout again. You've been on form this year. Performance of the year, arguably, from yourself.
He's got the stamina this year, Ben.
Yeah.
He didn't have that last year. For me, though, my prospect of the year, I can't argue with that really, but Reito Satsumi. I feel like he had a slow start to his pro debut, obviously in Times Square on that. Talk about cards of the year, that's probably one of the worst cards of the year, where no one got a stoppage that night. He didn't get a stoppage to kick off his career, but then he had a fight on the Hamza Shiraz Edgar Berlanga undercard in New York in Queens. Then he was in Vegas on the undercard of Canelo against Crawford, looked impressive there. Fisher's knockout again. And then on the weekend as well, he just bullied his opponent, broke him down and got rid of him within the distance.
In terms of a set of cards to be on through 2025,
Exactly.
I don't think anyone's taught it.
He's building nicely, and I want to say that in Japanese boxing, they hand out A-class licenses to fighters who have fought professionally for a couple of fights. I want to say Satsumi was handed that as soon as he turned.
No, so what you do in Japan, as far as I'm aware, is the commission basically come and watch a sparring session between yourself and an already established pro with the professional boxing license to establish whether or not you deserve to be a professional boxer. They watched that. They gave him his A license straight away, and then the next morning he got a ring from Turki Al-Sheikh saying, "I want you to be on the ring ambassador. I want you to come fight for me." And then obviously he's over to Times Square. He's over to
He's everywhere.
He's been
He hasn't even fought in Japan yet, which is crazy.
Yeah, he's been brilliant. And that last performance, just the other night was spectacular. Really impressive. I expected him to possibly get a stoppage really late on, going into the fight. As soon as I watched the opening round, I thought, this guy's tough. I don't know if he's going to get him out of here. And then as the rounds came on, it just looked like he was unraveling that little bit. And then he also got the stoppage. Hugely impressive. I think this has been our best set of nominations for Prospect of the Year. And there's people we've missed out.
I feel like when you say that a prospect's 5-0, it's a little bit hard when there was 2 prospects I had. Certain Visioli. I still fish champ. I still think he's a prospect technically.
Our bells are on the way.
People, like, you read some stuff online, people still have Moses Atama as a prospect, which is mental.
Well,
even I wouldn't have Moses Atama as a prospect.
That's no glove. But my prospect of the year, I think, shows that I definitely know glove. It's a bit of a shoe-in because someone I've interviewed before from the hometown is TMA Ayton.
This is our hardest category to choose from.
She walked onto the scene from the amateurs after not going to the Olympics. She's a gold medalist in the amateurs. She's unbeaten in the amateurs. just 18 years of age, and everyone thought, wow, this is someone to watch for the future. But what I think nobody thought is how quickly we'd be watching for now. She is unbelievable. 4 wins since June, bear in mind. So she made her pro debut in June, age 18. She's now just 19. The people she's beaten people who have taken rounds off of seasoned pros at the top of their career. The likes of Laura Payne, her last fight when she beat Fran Hennessy, she beat the fighter who took rounds off Fran Hennessy, and she did it without leaving second gear via knockout. I think that first performance, with all the talk of how good she was from Eddie Hearn, from Matchroom, from local boxing coaches I'd spoken to, everyone had said, no, trust me, she's a joke. I was thinking, okay, in my head, she's a joke. And I watched it, and she was better than I thought she was going to be.
I think you're going to have to throw the towel in, Ben.
This is really difficult.
I would happily give it to any one of these.
Yeah, there's a strong argument for each one, I think.
And 2/3 of them, friends of the channel.
Yeah.
Amari reached out. I think that's it. And that's where Amari reached out and said, I'm a fan of the channel. Get me on. Tia, interview for the magazine, interview on the channel.
So basically what you're saying is we need to find out a way to interview.
Use that to do the interview for Sasumi as well, because me and Sasumi trying to understand each other, I don't think it's going to go very well.
But maybe we need you for the eye line if it's in person. Yeah. Because otherwise, if it would be, we'll get a sore neck or something.
Yeah, it'd be
Lots made. But what are we going for?
Team A.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
I'm going to go on late to start.
Team A, it was down on my list, but I knew that Sam would pick her, so
I think we'll go with that.
just how good she's this was
the hardest category.
just how good she's looked in her last couple of fights, and especially that one most recently on a Wednesday night, wasn't it? It's just that stoppage was like, when you watch her now, when you watch female boxing, you normally sit down and expect to watch a 10-round or however long it's scheduled for war and it go the distance. With Team A18, you're expecting a stoppage. I think that's exciting.
Do you think you're looking at world titles with her by the end of 2026? Obviously, they move a lot quicker.
I think you could, but I don't think you will.
Out of our 3 prospects, who challenges for a world title the soonest? Even if that's a word. I mean,
It'd be close. I think he will move fast.
Well, Sutsumi, he wants to be a world champion. He wants to fight for a world title, in his 10th fight.
Yeah.
So if he carries on the way he's going, by the end of 2026, which again in 2027,
I think Tia gets it 7 or 8 fights.
You see a lot of female fighters fight about 8 to 9. When was Lauren Price? She was 7 and all. What she done?
I think as well with Tia, you look at it, when you've got Fran Hennessy fighting Ellie Butel, defending the WBC silver early next year, I would feel happy with Tia stepping in on that fight and feel fairly confident she would get the win, and then she'd be next in line for a world title. And to do that 4-0 at 19 years of age as well, I think you have to give her it.
Let's get it at Ashton Gate so we can pull over a bridge.
Are you sure she's a Bristol City fan as well? She isn't Bristol Roman.
Ashton Gate is her dream stadium.
Okay.
If I'm completely honest, I'm not sure she's that asked of football, but
I wouldn't be either if it was a Bristol City.
Yeah, fair enough. But Ashton Gate's the stadium she wants to.
I had by Ben Tommy.
She wants to fight in. We've got 2 more categories for the awards. The first one is Promoter of the Year, which I think we'll keep fairly brief because it's not that interesting. No. And then we've got a nice little fun one to end, which is our worst take of the year. Which one of us, and I'll put the clip after at the end.
Oh, good.
To the video.
Good. I hope you include the word as well in my clip.
That's fine by me.
It rhymes with wood.
Promoter of the Year. I think, if I'm right, you guys have gone for the same person. So I'll kick off. I've gone for Izzy Asif for GBM Sports. And I've done that because I think pound for pound, if we're talking, and I'm talking pound sterling, not weight, they've done the best on the circuit. I think to now be on GBM, mostly on a Saturday night, sometimes on a Friday night, to put on the types of shows they have, 7 shows. They've done the York Hall. They've done that Doncaster Stadium show with the world title fight for Terry Harper, won in her hometown, first world title fight in Doncaster Stadium. They did the super middleweight tournament in Hull, which was great, brilliant, entertaining. They've had a couple stinkers in there, I'll be honest. The one in particular I went up to. But that,
They had rotten luck with that as well.
it's all been illnesses, failing weights, losing, all of this stuff that's mostly out of their control. And I think also for me, they've gone from, the biggest thing is they've gone from last year putting on IBF and WBO European title fights to this year putting on EBU European, Commonwealth and world title fights. The level they've improved, it's been really impressive.
Yeah. In terms of, well, what started off as a small horse show has grown into, I think, I think it's you could argue GBM's probably third ranked at the moment, obviously behind Queensbury and Matchroom, which are, fully fledged and been there for decades. But in terms of the next coming through, then ahead of Boursa, you put GV 100%. That's the start of the year, no, but from where Boxer are currently and how they are looking.
They've got deeper cards. They've got better prospects. I mean, that being said, obviously, Boxer have just signed Kraus, who's one of their top prospects, but it is someone they're going to continue to work with.
But that also shows how much they've grown. The fact the Boxer are looking and thinking, we need to go take in your talent because you've unearthed someone really good and we need talent coming through, then that's only a positive, I think.
Yeah, they've also done really well at just telling some fun local stories. They've got lots of interesting characters and fighters, and they've Ed Hardy, Taz Nadeem, who obviously lost in the tournament. Even the likes of Shakan Pitters obviously lost to Brad Ray. They've all got great stories, and I think GBM have done a really good job of platforming that, which I always appreciate.
They had a great fight between Ben Crocker and Sean McCall.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, lots of good stuff.
But the real promoter of the year, can't believe I'm saying this, Jake Paul and MVP, with their work that they've done with women's boxing, particularly that Netflix show in July, all-female card, Madison Square Gardens, the first ever time that's ever been done. I'm trying to think, did I write a piece I want to say I wrote something in the magazine about it. I remember writing about that female side of the year being making history or something. I can't remember if I did or not, but
I don't think so.
I might have included it on Elizabeth.
Yeah, it might.
Oh, yes, it was. Yeah, it might have been that.
Mentioned, yeah.
But just everything he's done for women's boxing in particular is brilliant. He's found a market and he's found a sport, particularly in women's sport, that is being overlooked quite a lot. And it's gone, you know what, we're going to invest a lot now. We're going to give them the time. We've seen a couple of fights this year that have gone 12 3-minute rounds. Alicia Baumgardner on the Joshua Jake Paul undercard that went 12 3-minute rounds. Moving forward, that's what they're hoping to do with Amanda Serrano and all that. I just think for women's boxing that when you go back a couple of years and you look at women's fights, where they were on the undercard of fights, they were like sort of the first fight on the card. Now, a co-main event on a consistent basis, and I think that's really good. But I think what lets them down, MVP and Jake Paul, is the sort of fights that they make for the main events that Jake Paul is involved in with the likes of Paul and Joshua, where I sort of lean towards GBM.
I think if you're looking at that though, and this category as promoter of the year, those two fights have been the best promoted fights of 2025. When you look at Mike Tyson fight and the Joshua fight, they probably the two most watched fights of 2025 because it brings in such a big audience outside of even just casual boxing fans. People who would never watch a boxing fight would have probably tuned into both of those fights. Obviously as well, what he's done with female boxing, I think you have to give him major credit for, and I think that's only going to grow in 2026 massively. I think he definitely deserves to win it, just in terms of, I know he's a very Marmite character, people love him or hate him, but you cannot argue against the businessman that he is and the promoter that he is, to be able to make, was it 50 million quid from going 5-6 rounds with Anthony Joshua? Like, it's hard to argue, I think.
I reluctantly think so. I think as well, you've got to say as well, Jake Paul had no right at all getting the Anthony Joshua fight, but the promoter secured it by whatever means necessary. They secured a fight that they had no right to be a part of. So from that point of view, again, as a promoter, you got to give plus marks. I've got a solution though. We give it to Nikisa.
Yes. We go off. No, good valuable promotion. Good shirt. Yeah. So we don't give him credit.
Also, listen, she is the promoter. Yeah. Jake Paul is the CEO, and
Yeah, but is he doing anything without Jake Paul? So I mean, yeah, he's just like that mate that tags along and eats. You know what I mean?
what Jake?
No, like
Just a wind up. Yeah.
I'd also, in terms of honourable mentions, I know we've given a couple of honourable mentions for some of these, but I'd also like to give one for Johnny Clark as well. We're top tier in terms of what he does on the budget that he has for his shows compared to others. I've been lucky enough, obviously, to be working at every one of the shows through 2025, and every single one has been really entertaining, full of 50-50 fights up and down the card. The main events always seem to deliver. The tournament they done, I think, is one of the best nights of boxing I've ever watched. It was just full entertainment from first fight all the way through to the eventual winner, and I think he's done a very good job this year, and I think we'll only see, like GBM, only see the both of them grow in 2026, and I think it's what British boxing needs. It needs a lot more cards and promotions like GBM and top tier coming through, because it only helps the overall sort of strength of the sport throughout the UK.
I think if you're going to shout out Johnny Clark, I think you got to give a big thanks to Dan Francis, the matchmaker.
We do. Yeah,
Does matchmake all the fights.
I think as well, the thing Johnny, plus marks for Johnny, just to, while we're on it, his two things. First and foremost, he, the way they promote the fighters, the fight videos, the fact that they give home and away fighters a colour match gloves and kit. It's a radical concept in boxing, but it shouldn't be. It's common courtesy.
Mm-hmm.
All of this stuff, and also just as a person, we've been fortunate enough to go to a couple of the shows, but because of location, we can't always make it. There's so many shows we've missed, or certainly I've missed. And every time I see him, he comes straight over to me, shakes my hand, says, "How are you?" He knows who I am. And I don't mean that in like an ego sense from me, but I mean that in the sense of, that's great promotion. Know the people who are turning up to your shows, know who they are and why they're there and what they can give you and what you can give them. Absolutely huge credit to him. I think the fact that GBM and Jake Paul have had such good years, he's unfortunate not to miss out. But we're giving it to Nikisa. Shout out to you, Nikisa. And also, he's got part of Jake Paul. So, credit to him for that. The last one. Worst take of the year. Now, I have a sneaking suspicion that these two have both got me on here. So what we'll do is we'll go Benn.
I'm quite shocked about this.
Benn nominated. I'm trying to think. I'll nominate and then Harry. So Ben, what is your worst take of the year?
I've probably forgot.
Do you want me to go first?
But no, I'll go first, because I think it was probably one that's most recent. I think it was it was the fight week of Jake Joshua. Obviously, we had the discussion around if Jake Paul could beat, I'm going to say, a white collar Fabio Wardley. You, Sam, said that you think Jake Paul couldn't. And I was shocked, because I think the first time Fabio Wardley stepped in the gym, I think he'd do a job on Jake Paul anyway. But yeah, that's my shout for worst take of the year.
You know what? I'm actually comfortable with this one, to be nominated for this one, because I stand by it and I'm comfortable with it as a decision. I think you and Gar stand by it. And so I don't mind being nominated, because see, it's a you problem. No, you're wrong. Yeah. No, I think Jake is half decent at absolute best. And I think to suggest that Fabio Wardley would have been half decent when he's just laced up the gloves, I think you do so much learning so quickly. It's such a complex sport. No doubt he picked it up immensely quickly, and he's an athletic freak and all of this. But I can see why you put it forward, because it's a mental statement. But I feel comfortable. My one, I'm going to sandwich in the middle of the onslaught on me and hope to kind of come round the back, is a mental one. I can't believe you lot have forgotten this or let this slide. This man in the middle here, Harry Tovey, has suggested that Joshua Padley could is a future world champ.
Good. So you've put the clip in beforehand.
I'll put the clip in after. So your wording was that now that he's been able to turn over full time, side with Matchroom after a loss to Shakur Stevenson,
Could help him.
he could go on to become a future world champion. I think that's a crazy statement.
It's could all in capitals.
I'm going to give you the benefit that we were all so happy, so excited.
Do you know what? I couldn't believe that.
I think you just got a bit carried away.
You know, I couldn't believe. I rewatched it back a couple weeks back, the podcast, because we were preparing for this. I said it. Both of you didn't do anything. I was thinking, I
can't believe what I heard.
No, you would post like, they were paused. It was unbelievable. But I've honestly thought we went back and forth then about it, but we didn't. It just went over our heads. So I don't think it's that worse of a take.
I think it's outrageous.
So when he wins an IBF international title, it'll be a mic drop moment.
He beat a British level at best Mark Chamberlain and got comprehensively beat by Shakur Stevenson, albeit showing an immense. And I mean, I love Josh Padley, but fighters have levels, and his level is not a world title. I don't believe.
Fair enough. Do you know what mine is? So I was watching. I wanted to go first because it was in my head fresh and all. But I was watching the card. I think it was in Nigeria with Lawrence Okoli and Ebenezer Tete, and I was watching it, and I couldn't believe what I was watching. Tete's there up against the ropes, and all of a sudden I'm thinking, oh, here comes a massive KO from Lawrence Okoli. He's there for him, and all of a sudden Okoli just grabs hold of him and holds him, and I'm sat there and I'm thinking, hang on a minute. A certain Sam Hill from the Puncture Strands podcast had Lawrence Okoli in the top 10, I got it right now, hopefully, pound for pound British boxers of 2025.
Correct. No, just generally.
Generally.
Sorry, point of recording, yeah. And was it March? It was before he fought on the Usyk Dubois undercard. So we hadn't seen the summer then. We hadn't seen that performance yet. And we hadn't seen against Lorena. And we hadn't seen the Ebenezer Tete performance yet. So I'll give you...
Actually, it sounds worse in hindsight, though.
I'll ask you again. Is Lawrence Okoli in the top 10 pound for pound British boxers at this current moment? 2 days before the new year.
I don't know for sure, but I still certainly wouldn't say no, because I think.
But you're watching that fight in Nigeria.
Because, all right, I think he is undoubtedly, you cannot take this away from him, a two-weight champion. He has won the title at cruiserweight, at bridgeweight, stepped up to heavyweight, and won 3 fights on the bounce against fighters like Kevin Lorena, who are world-level fighters. By God, does he not make it look very good? By God, does he not make it look pretty? But I just think you can't take those previous achievements away from him. If anyone else in the UK was a two-weight champion, they'd be right up near the top. So I think you have to. I just feel you have to play a double test in there.
There's better fighters.
We've got 3 world champions.
Yeah, but there's 3. There's only 7 left, and we've got loads of interims.
But I think he's not pretty. He's not a good watch.
Can we just agree then that he's 11th?
Sure. Yeah. He's not high. I put 10th, I think, or 9th, maybe.
I'm trying to think what fighter I wanted on the list.
The whole argument was the argument was the heavyweight one. You put Filip Hrgović.
Oh, again, Sang, wasn't it? Yeah.
You put Filip Hrgović out as a bad show.
I stand by this, that Filip Hrgović beats Lawrence Okoli at heavyweight. There's a bold.
A good fight to watch. I wouldn't mind watching it.
I mean, even if you know what you get with Lawrence Okoli, so
yeah. Well, I'm sticking with my choice of the Jake Paul Fabio Wardley shot.
So is it on me again?
Because you can't just agree on it. One of the worst takes is you. I'm not going to agree with that. I think if I had to out of yours, I think the Fabio Wardley one is the worst take. So I think based on that, your decision goes, and you're not going to vote for yourself. So I think I'm going to take this one on the chest. I'm happy with this. Okay, yeah. I'm comfortable with both my takes. I'm comfortable that with the logic behind them.
I'm glad you won this, because if he had won it, I think we'd have tears at the end. But
yeah, that was all that.
Good job. There's what's it?
Scaffold. Invite you into my own home, and He slandered me.
So you went for the Fabio Border one. So what happens if I went the Padley one?
Well, I just agreed that mine was the worst take.
Your
Mine probably is the worst take.
I think yours is the worst day, but,
But
I'm willing to take it.
I'm not going to lose on it.
I don't.
It is a bad take.
It is. But there was a big good
I was trying.
out of it.
The other problem is, there's the. I tried to just. I was a bit lazy. I just looked at shorts. So I don't know which shorts or which didn't make it to shorts. But I couldn't remember when the Taylor Bevan world champion, Victor world champion. It was that. I think yours is based off of a buzz of overexcitement, whereas mine is genuine belief, which makes my takes worse. It's because I will go down on my shield. Whereas I think if we said, hang about here, mate, you might have gone, actually, yeah, I probably got a bit excited there.
Was that Tyson Fury clip this year?
What, your one?
Yeah.
That's the best take of the year.
I wouldn't say that's the worst take.
Tyson Fury being overrated is the best take of 2020.
There's a very split opinion.
The best take for the 20th century. Some would argue that YouTube short on 500,000 views and still 500,000 people riled in the comments belong to the list.
Still going for this bit.
Hall of Famer. Well, that just about wraps up our 2025 review. It's been nice and long, actually. We've gone on quite a lot. There's so much good stuff to talk about. So I hope you guys enjoyed us reliving the year a little bit. If you have, then obviously subscribe, but particularly subscribe, because if you join us later in the week, we'll be bringing you a 2026 preview. We'll be talking about who we think might be the fighter of the year next year, fights we have to see next year, people to watch out for. So if you want a bit of scouting, all that good stuff. So obviously subscribe for all that, or follow us on Spotify if you prefer to just listen to the audio. I would beg you. We're currently sat in a living room. It's not the most visually interesting video, but it's a podcast nonetheless. Thank you all for a brilliant 2025, a brilliant end to the year. December's been a really strong year. You guys have showed us loads and loads of support. It's been a brilliant year. So thank you for all of that, and we'll see you all later in the week, but also next year.
Punches chance. Punches chance podcast.